Okay, so I'm going to start the conversation. I'll open it up. Um, the premise for this and the reason we did this was because when the recent conflict happened, as everybody knows, there was a lot of bad press for Israel. Anti-Semitism, as we all know, is just getting more and more heightened. And there was a lot happening that people really just didn't know about. So I thought it would be really nice to have some of our emissaries speak to us, from sort of on the ground. They're there, and they can give us a little more firsthand personal accounts of what they experienced, how they feel, what they're seeing worldwide. So I wanted to have an opportunity also for people in our community to ask questions, to voice concerns, even if there are objections, just have a dialogue about it, which I think will help everybody. Um, so I'm going to start off just by I'm going to introduce each emissary, and then I'm going to have each one of them will give you sort of like an opening statement, sort of about what they've experienced and what their perspective is. Um, and we'll just go from there. So I'm going to go just from how you are in my window. So Guy Carmi was our emissary in 2016-17, and then Einat was in 06-07. And Bar Halgoa was in 13-14. Hadar was in 09-10. And Rui was in 18-19. Rui Suleimani, not Rui Raffaelli. We had Rui in 18-19 and another Rui in 19-20. Okay, so I think we're going to start, and we're going to do it sort of from the outside in, and you'll understand what I mean when they start talking. So Bar, if you could start, that would be great.
Yeah, I'll go first. So,
Thank you.
like Marcia said, I was in the community in 13-14. So hello, guys, to the people I know and people I don't know. Hello. So last time we spoke, I don't know if you all were in the conversation, but I left Germany for through the Navy, and I got back Wednesday. And so while this conflict occurred in Israel, I was actually abroad in Germany. And when it started, I was at sea. So I didn't really know what was going on until I came back. We went out just to practice for a short training of 24 hours with a new ship off the German coast. And we got back to the harbor, and the commander of the ship told us that things have escalated in Israel. And when I say escalated, it went really fast. Like we went out to sea for 24 hours, and when we left the pier, nothing happened in Israel. Everything was routine. It was normal. It was right before Jerusalem Day, and we got back. And so the commander said that something started, and it's escalating. It's becoming a little bit like Protective Edge in 2014. And actually, also in Protective Edge in 2014, I was in the States. So maybe I shouldn't leave the country. but so I immediately called obviously my friends and family. And if I wouldn't leave, if I would stay in the Navy, we would obviously operate down in the Gaza Strip. And it was very also weird and hard to be away from friends and family, especially because my sister lives down in the south near Ashdod. So with two of the nephews. So they went up north to my parents because it became real unbearable. It was rockets all the time, every hour. And also where I lived in Germany, there were a lot of protests against Israel. And basically immediately, a few days after it started. Also because there was a big immigrant community in Kiel, Germany, where I used to live in the north of Germany. And it started also to be, all the anti-Semites started to raise their heads all over the world and also in Germany. So, and in other places in Germany, in synagogues, I think 2 synagogues were vandalized because of the escalation in Israel. So that's my story. It ended a few days after, of course, like you all know. And I'll let the other emissaries talk, and then we'll open it for questions.
Okay, thank you, Bar. Guy, if you would go next.
Yes, thank you. So it's really good to see everybody and hear everybody. I missed you all. Uh, so for my story during what happened last month, so everything started on a Monday when they started shooting towards Jerusalem, and then the day after they reached Tel Aviv. And when they shot Tel Aviv, started shooting, the first thing I did was text Erica Weiner. I believe many of you know who that is, that made Aliyah from our community to Israel, now lives in Tel Aviv without her family. Her family is in the community. And so I texted her to make sure that she's okay. And she was really shaken by it because she lives here now for a few years and she never experienced an alarm and nowhere near Tel Aviv. And the other people that I talked to is my brother, who lives with his wife, his 2-year-old daughter, and his wife is also pregnant with my future nephew. And they live in Tel Aviv. And imagine a small family like that, that 9 p.m. they need to deal with missiles and a young child and what they need to do with that. So what they did was just go to the north to escape from the missiles. And they stayed both with my family and her family, my sister-in-law's family. And 2 days later, I went home from my apartment near the Technion in Haifa. That's where I study right now. I went back from my apartment because there were rumors that they would shoot at Haifa. What eventually didn't happen, but because there were rumors, I went back home. And that night, when I went back home, there was an alarm in Givat Ela, which is in the north. So we found it really weird that why would something happen in the north? Is it coming from that direction from Hamas or from that direction from Lebanon? But apparently it was neither of them, and it was a false alarm. But that happened in the middle of the night. It was like 1 a.m. I was still awake working on stuff for school for the Technion, and then an alarm in the middle of the night. I run downstairs, wake up my parents. We go. We now have a shelter at our house. We didn't have an alarm in Givat Ela since 2006, Second Lebanon War, but just in case, many families started just building bomb shelters at their own homes, like a separate room. And so we went there, and in the morning we found out it was a false alarm. Obviously, we didn't know that back then. But still, it was scary, and everything was scary. And I wanted to let the people in the community know what was going on, because one of the things that I bet we'll discuss as this conversation is going on is what happened in social media during the period of the operation last month. Everybody who's everybody posted something whether it was on Instagram or on Facebook. And it seemed that many people, especially young people, college age, about my age, wanted to post things just to seem woke without even actually investigating and realizing what they are saying, just to be part of the conversation. Many of those people are Jewish people. Many of those people are people that visited Israel in the past. And I'm talking about people that I know from Connecticut and from Michigan and from many places, from the summer camp I went to. And many of those stuffs were pro-Israel because they love us and they know the truth about what's going on here. But many, it wasn't. And that's something that concerned me because people who know me and know what's going on here, and people who actually visited here, I mean, you know what's going on. I mean, you experienced it either firsthand, because some of the people were people that were here in 2014 during Protective Edge, that saw sirens, that not saw, heard sirens, and bombs were shot at them when we were traveling together here. We were on a trip, something like Birthright, but for younger people, high school age. And during that summer, missiles were shot at them, and they still spread misinformation. And that concerns me because all of the misinformation that is spread is hurting us. So I did the best that I can of spreading the truth and stuff like from Stand With Us or stuff like that, so people would know what actually is going on. So yeah, that's my part.
Okay, thank you, Guy. I appreciate that. Let me see where I am here. Next would be Einat.
Great. So, hi, everybody. I know only some of you, but still, it's a pleasure to be here and to talk to you all. So, I'm married. I have two young kids. Golan is named after the Golan Heights. He's 5, and Tavor is the Tavor Mountain. It's very close to the Gilboa. He's 2, and it was very difficult as a mother to experience the last operation or war, because I experienced something different. I live in Ramat Zvi, it's in the Gilboa region. We didn't have rockets here, we didn't have alarms here, but we did get a lot of the people who escaped or ran away from the missiles to Tel Aviv or to the south. Basically half of the country, which was unusual because it was the first time the center of Israel got bombed in such repeated methodic way all the time. People told me it was just unbearable. And regardless of the fact that the people in the south live like that for 20 years, it was very difficult because my brother lives in Tel Aviv also, and he has also 2 young kids. One is 4 and one is 2 months. And the reason is I'm mentioning it also, he doesn't have not a shelter, not a safe room. And these 2 kids, I would share something very personal. It was very hard for them to bring into this world. And it was very difficult for my sister-in-law to run to the closet. Just close your eyes and imagine the situation where you have 2-month-old baby and a 4-year-old, and you have to run to the closet because it's the only place in the house that doesn't have an outside wall. And if a rocket hits it, it's the less likely place to get hurt in. So it was the safest place in the house. I'm putting in quotation because it's not really safe. It's like a box of matches, really, if something seriously happens. And my sister-in-law grew up in a kibbutz Kabri, which is in the north of Israel, and she was a small child when there was a war in the north, and she was so traumatized that it took maybe one night, 2 or 3 more actually alarms just to to wake up in the morning and say, she told me, she was crying, she said, I really can't handle this with a 2-month-old baby and a 4-year-old, and they came here for almost a week. It was very hard to see that and experience that with them, not personally experience that, but through them to get their fear. They were really afraid for their lives and for their kids. And my brother is not a very emotional person. But you could see the fear on their faces, and that was really difficult for me to experience with them. And another thing that I got is I have a good friend who lives in Ashkelon. She has a 6-month-old baby, and they stayed for almost 10 days. She slept in the safe room because they were so scared to let her out of the safe room. And you can imagine it's a regular, normal house. What's the distance between that and the kitchen and the living room? It's nothing, maybe 10 steps, I don't know. A staircase, 1 staircase, it's a private residence. And they didn't let her out from the safe room because there was an alarm every 2 minutes. They couldn't even go to eat properly. But the safe room is not always large enough for everybody. So some of them, her parents who lived with them stayed out of the safe room to let the baby sleep in the safe room. So it's very complicated. I'm sharing this personal experience just to really share what was the atmosphere, what was the personal experience. And it was difficult, it was different because we also had lots of complex situation inside of Israel. So it was different. It was even, I would say it was worse than other times. And I was fortunate not to experience it firsthand, but through family and friends pass on the feeling and of the reality of the situation. And it was terrible because as a mother, it was difficult for me to think of the kids living in fear everywhere and both sides. And I'm just a person. It hurts. War hurts, period. There's nothing to add on top of that. And the situation is so complicated and so difficult. I don't know what would be a good, I don't know, lack of a better word, I don't know, solution. I don't know if that's a good word to describe it with. That's what I wanted to share.
Thank you, Hadar. Sorry, Einat. Sorry. Going to Hadar. Thank you, Einat. Hadar, you're up.
Hi, everyone. I'm really happy to be here. Unfortunately, in these circumstances, but luckily I had the opportunity to see the community a few times during the year. And I'm glad to see you, and I'm happy that you came to talk to us and to listen to our stories. And my story is a first-hand story. I live on the border of Tel Aviv. I live in Ramat Gan. And I'm sorry, it's taking me back. I'm sorry. So I have an 8-month-old baby. Her name is Noga. And the first night that they started shooting to Tel Aviv, I was thinking, we'll be fine, because the last time they had like 3 rockets to Tel Aviv, and I wasn't a mom. And I went outside. We didn't have a safe room back at our old home, and we went outside. And it's like when you don't have kids, it's so different. And now she's here. And I remember that they said that they're going to shoot at Tel Aviv at 9 p.m. And then a bit before that, it started. So I took Noga and we ran to the shelter. And many friends of mine who live here don't have a safe room. And I was in touch with them all the time. And they have to go outside of their apartment and to run downstairs. And they might have a shelter and they might not. And they might have to be close to the safest room, like Einat said, and believe in God and pray and wait for it to stop. And you can hear the bombs, you can hear the bombing of, thank God, to the Iron Dome, which is like our superhero, stopping it as much as it can, and it did an amazing job. But you can see it outside, you hear the bombing, you hear everything, you see it with your eyes. You may have seen the pictures of the lights in the sky. It looks like aliens, it looks like something crazy. And you can hear it and you can see it, and you have a baby in your hands. So we went to shelter. And as I said, luckily I have a safe room. So I didn't have to go in the middle of the night and hide away in a staircase downstairs. And I stayed in the safe room. We don't have a bed there. So I prepared something to sleep on and something for Noga to sleep on. And I was like, I don't care if she sleeps on something that is very, very, uncomfortable for both of us, but I'm not leaving this room all night because I won't be able to sleep, of course. I won't be able to sleep even if there aren't sirens, because what if I can't hear it? What if it happens before there's a siren? That happens sometimes. So, sorry. So we stayed all night. And the situation is that even if you want to go to places, you always think that, okay, I'm in a car. So when I'm in a car, I'm not next to a safe room. So, it's something that you think about. It's something that you consider. You think if you should leave home or not. Should I go to my mom's? Shouldn't I? Maybe I'll be, I'll risk my daughter. Maybe I'll risk my family if I go out to be in a safer place. So I went to my mom's. My mom lives a bit farther, and usually when it's from Gaza, there's never a siren there because it's farther. It's really, it's safe and you should feel comfortable there. So we went there and we took that ride. And I was thinking, okay, it would worth it. We need to feel comfortable. We need to feel safe. And then there were sirens there. And it was scary, but the time that I can recall, I'm trying, I can't really convey the feeling that your legs are shaking and your hands are shaking because you don't know what's going to happen. And I feel it a little bit now because I don't know why. And the thing is that I felt safe there. So I let Noga stay with my aunt, and then it started, and you don't know when it's going to stop. And they have a problem with their safe home, with their safe room. They don't have a window. So if you don't have the safe window, then it doesn't count. If something happens, it goes straight. If you maybe heard about that little boy that some parts went through the safe window into their safe room. So the thoughts about the ride to her, the ride to take her. So I have a ride to her and I need to take her back. And what do? Do I put her in her safe seat? Will I have enough time to take her out of this thing? Because it's hard sometimes to press it. It's hard to open it. So will I have enough time to go to her, open it, take her, find a place to hide? Will I find a place to hide? It's only me and her. Is it safe? Am I risking her? Am I risking her but by not taking her? And I don't know how to explain to you these million thoughts in my head in seconds. And once it was over, I haven't talked about it since it was over. Maybe I should have, because now I feel like I'm doing it. It's happening all over again a little bit in my mind. But even though it's really hard for me apparently to talk about it, especially if I didn't have Noga, it was a completely different experience. But having her was, many of you are parents, so you probably know what it feels like to even have the slightest fear that something might happen to your child. That was that feeling, but for quite some time. And I feel kind of bad when I talk about myself, because I live close to Tel Aviv and we're very privileged. We have like a minute and a half to hide, and it's a long time because some people have 15 seconds, and I don't know what I can do in 15 seconds. I don't know what children can do in 15 seconds. Apparently, they live in the situation for a long time, for I think over 20 years. Correct me if I'm wrong. The people who live close to Gaza, they get it all the time. They live like this all the time. And they live there because that's their home. When people ask them, why do you not just leave this place? It's their home. So we understand that. And it's Israel. It's their home. It's the home of the Jews. It's their home. So every time I think about it, I feel a little bit, like, who am I to talk? And it rarely happened, but about 800 meters from here, from where I sit, a rocket hit the street and blew away all the apartments around it, and it killed a person. And it's here. I don't know if you can imagine. I can't even imagine. A few streets away from home, a rocket landed and killed somebody. I don't know. I'm sorry that I don't have enough words to explain. I don't even understand sound. But having this opportunity to talk to you and to tell you what happened to me specifically, which is kind of great what happened to me. Thank God to what happened to me, that we are all safe and our home is safe. People lost their homes. People lost many things. So I'm very lucky, and I'm very lucky to have you both here in this conversation and in my life. And thank you for listening.
Thank you for sharing, Hadar. I know that was hard, and we really appreciate it because you're giving us the actual feeling of what it, and which is hard to express, but of what it was like for you firsthand. Before we go into questions and discussion, there's one more person I would like to have speak, who is Roe Suleimani. And Roe, I'll let you do your own introduction. I think that'll be the best. And he's a little far away, but go ahead, Roe. You have to unmute, honey. You're muted. You have to unmute.
Okay, can you hear me?
Oh, yes. And now we can see you. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, okay, perfect. So, hello everybody, it's nice to see you. My name is Roy. Some of you know me, some of you not. I was the emissary of 1819 or 1920. I'm sorry, it's too late here for me. When I came back, I just want to give you a background of why I'm here and what's that place that I'm in. When I came back to Israel, I was needed to join the army. As you know, in Israel, we have a mandatory enlistment, which means we all need to join the army and serve in the army. So I was needed to go on a combat, being a combat soldier. And then I started to have some aches in my neck, in my back, in my hand. My hand was like numbing all the time. And I was like, something is wrong. And I started checking it with some tests. And then I've been told that I have something that's called malformation Chiari. That's the name of it. Which means that I had to go through an head surgery in order to not be paralyzed in my all parts, hands and legs. So of course the army set me free, and they told me you cannot serve in the army while you have that health issue. So I went through a surgery on 1 year ago. I went through a surgery, and I started thinking about, what am I gonna do? Okay, I'm not gonna join the army. Will I start learning? Will I volunteer to the army, or will I do something else? And then I saw on the internet there is something that called national service, which is a big group of Israelis, Arabs, Jews, whoever wants to serve the army and cannot do it through the army from any reason, can do it in all the places. There are national service in hospitals, national service in governments, ministries, and I saw an ad about doing my service at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and I was thinking like, oh, that seems like what I want to do, because I just came back from the US and I really like it. I really like to speak for my country, and I got this opportunity to be here. So I'm right now at the Division for Strategic Affairs. So I might not at the army, but I really feel like in the army. I'm talking with a lot of soldiers and stuff, because you know the security of Israel is depending on other countries too. We need good good communications and good okay. So that's why I feel like my contribution is good as well, and I'm happy to be here. So when the operation started, I was here at the Minister of Foreign Affairs. Actually, when at first I started learning to the psychometry test. It's a test here we need to go through before we're going to the university. So I'm combining between the two. I'm learning and doing my national service. So it was like 5 o'clock p.m. and I was at the class learning. And then I heard here in Jerusalem, the minister in Jerusalem, by the way, and I've learned at the here in Jerusalem for the psychometry test, and I heard a sirens. Well, I've been in the north in Lebanon in the Lebanon 2 war. I was 6 years old, but I know how siren sounds like. I felt it, and like when I first heard it, I was like, "Is it a siren? It cannot be a siren." It was Jerusalem Day, siren in Jerusalem. I was like, they're not gonna bomb Jerusalem. Jerusalem is holy for them too. Why would they bomb Jerusalem? And I was like, it's impossible. And my teacher was like, yes, it's impossible that they will bomb Jerusalem. It's like, it's holy for them. There are a lot of Palestinians, a lot of Arabs that lives here. Sorry, they're not gonna do it. And then we saw on the web that they did bomb Jerusalem. Sorry, I need some water, which I don't have here. I'm talking too much. And it's actually, sorry. Marsha, would you like to speak? I need water.
Sure. Yes, so Roe is at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and he is doing some wonderful work there. We recently actually had a conversation where he, I don't know exactly what he was doing, but when they were here, when we go to schools, we have a video that we show, which is called One Call Away, and it shows when Israel goes into other countries and helps whenever there is natural disasters. And Roe reached out to me and said, do you have that video? What is it called? I need it. So I know he's doing very good work because he's clearly going to, this was also after the conflict and while the anti-Semitism and the anti-Israel bias was really reaching peaks. So, so I don't know exactly what he did with it. I would love him to share that if he could, when he can speak.
I'm here. Yeah. I'm sorry. When I'm talking too much, it's happening to me. I need to have water close to me, and the room is so like. So I was thinking like they're not gonna bomb Jerusalem, and then we saw on the web that they did bomb Jerusalem, and it made me think that like they don't care about Hamas. I'm talking about Hamas. That they don't care about hurting their own people, hurting Arabs here, they just want Jews to be, I'm sorry to be so straight, but they just want Jews to be dead. That's what their beliefs are. I don't know if you know, but 2 Arabs were killed by their own missiles. A lot of Palestinians, citizens were killed by their own missiles that fell into the Gaza Strip. It was an unsuccessful launch, so it landed in the Gaza territory and killed some of the Palestinians citizens. They're bombing us through their own school and from the schools of their own people. And while I'm sitting and learning to my test in order to make a better future for my children, for the next generation, I was thinking like they're teaching them to sorry again. I was thinking, sorry, maybe I need to speak quieter.
Yeah, because we can hear you fine, Roe. You don't have to shout or anything.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, we can hear you fine.
So I was thinking to myself, while I'm learning in order to be a better person, or while we educate to be a better person, we don't believe in kill someone else or hurt someone else. Even our army calls IDF, Israel Defense Forces, is not Israel Attacks Forces. So that's all of our beliefs. And I was like thinking, I really want peace, and I'm here at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And since I'm here, we've signed on, not because of me, yes, of course, but since I'm here, Israel signed on, like, I think 4 peace agreements with Bahrain, with the United Arab Nation. And it is amazing because those are countries that are, some of people can call them our enemies, and we chose to make peace with people who want peace because we want peace. And I was like, I've heard from people that call me on WhatsApp or that sended me messages on Instagram and stuff like that. They were like, yeah, but it's not equal. They have more death. They have more life injured and stuff like that. And I was like, we all need to understand that every story got two sides for it. And it doesn't matter if, it's hard to say it, but like, we don't need to see who is suffering more. It's not about that. If someone is suffering and needs to run with their own child, it's hard too. So we need to understand it and to know it and to understand that there is two sides for every story, and the solution will come by if we will get to understand it. And that's it, I think.
That's great, Rui. Thank you. So now I'd like to open it up to everyone who is here. If you have questions you want to ask any one of our emissaries, or concerns or things you heard that are upsetting to you, concerning to you on any level, whether it's what's been going on here, I'd like to know myself, and I'll start with a question and then people can think, and you can either put it in the chat or you can just unmute and ask, because it's not a huge group. So, but I'd like to know from all of you what it was like. One of the things that struck me that was so difficult was to hear that there was so much infighting in Israel. I mean, they were like pogroms. That was terrifying to me, because the whole purpose of Israel is that we have a place where we're safe. And that struck me as that there had to be a feeling of not being safe in Israel. And that, so anyway, if any of you could speak to that, that would be really helpful, because I couldn't imagine how that must have felt.
Marsh, I would like to answer it if I can.
Yeah, go ahead, Rui.
So currently I live in Jerusalem, which is the most complicated city, I can say. And I can tell you that Hamas was guided Palestinians here to stab, kill, murder, hurt Jews in order to win their own war. And it was terrifying for me. I used to live in Jerusalem before this operation started, and I walked in the streets and I felt so safe, like nothing can happen and everything is okay. And then when the operation started, I was like so afraid to walk on the street, and you can see that people are afraid too. And then I was like, yes, that's right. Israel needs to be the safest place, and it is, because when I was a little bit afraid, I was taking my eyes up, and I saw an officer there, a soldier there, a cop, policeman there, and it was like, you're safe, you're in a good place. And when I was on a train, there was security guy on the train with us that makes sure that everything is okay. And being around with, I know that the Iron Dome is not 100% successful, but it gives you some of the feeling that you are secured. And I was like, we are the Jewish nation. We are, and I was so proud of us being Jews in Israel, that we had nothing 73 years ago. We had nothing, and right now we have an amazing country. We have a country that builds systems to protect itself, that builds systems to help each other, to help others. And while we building those systems, they're building systems to attack us. Systems like using their own people as human shield. But the point is that I was walking here, and I was like, it's okay. You can go. You will be safe. And even if something will, God forbid, happen, in a minute, someone else will come and help you and will take care of you, and you're in the safe place. Because even in the United States, I saw so many anti-Semitic, and not just in the United States, all over Europe. I saw so many anti-Semitic events, and I saw officers that doing nothing while other people hurting Jews, and I was like, here it's not gonna happen. And it's not just for Jews; it's for Arabs too. If someone will hurt Arab, the officer will help, will protect them too. That's what I like about Israel, that there is no, how to say it?
Imbalance.
Yeah, imbalance. Thank you.
Everybody's equal.
Roe, could you answer, this is Romana, could you answer Marcia's question about, we had a lot of video here about fights between Israelis, between the Orthodox and then and the right wing and the others, that there were, it disturbed me much more than the Palestinian or Hamas's attacks, because we expect Hamas to be our enemy. Infighting among the Jews, that was really frightening.
Yeah, I agree with you, because in my eyes, this is not Israel's
Jews
way.
against Jews? Sorry.
I'm on mute?
No. Hadar had a
No,
question.
I'm
I think
asking.
she's clarifying.
You mean
Go ahead.
Orthodox? I mean, I just wanted to understand which groups were fighting that you saw.
The right wing and sometimes Orthodox against not Orthodox, but mostly it was I think it was frequently a political thing. The right wing against more liberals.
So Ramona, I'm not. It's in my eyes. It's hard for me too, because I was like, this is not our way. We don't need to be like them. We don't need to act like them. We are better than this. We're not gonna fall into it. And it was hard for me too. And I'm not gonna explain or justify their acts, because in my eyes, this is a radical actions, and radical actions have no place in Israel. And they were judged just like the Arabs the radical Arabs who were judged. Same, equal, balance. They were just the same. I'm not gonna justify their acts. That's not what I'm here for. I think that there are a lot of people who are in the middle, who wants to live here in peace. I was going on a taxi with an Arab guy that lives in Jerusalem, and he was like, "Oh, that Hamas, they murdered my job. I couldn't work for 5 days. I have family to," and he's an Arab, and he was telling me, I have a family to feed, and I was not working because of their problem. No one wants to go out. No one was ordering a taxi. What would I ask? To live here and in peace? And I was like, yes, that's what I want to. So yes, there are some radicals all over the world, and we don't need to give those radicals their place. That's why we need to make sure no radical gets any stage for its own says. If you want to go against someone or something, you can speak. You can do it by talking. You can do it by protesting, but do it with respect, with respectful. So I'm not gonna justify their acts, and of course I'm not justify any acts of violence. So it's hard for me to see it, Ramona.
Yeah, well,
Thank you.
it doesn't.
I want to add to that just one sentence.
For Israel, or my deep feelings for what you all are going through. I have a sister and nieces and nephews and cousins and tons of people who are in Israel, and my sympathies are totally with you. It just hurts a little,
Absolutely. Einat, you were going to say something?
I just want to say that it's completely, it hurts to us to see it happening. And the vast majority sometimes is silent, but in this case, I think everybody's obviously all the same, normal or normative people are all against violence, just like Roy said. And most times the political, it's demonstrations, it might go into unnecessary and very, nobody likes violence in any situation. But the more scary inside Israel and disturbing situation was between the Arabs and the Jews in Israel, because it's people, a lot of the cities, a lot of the places, it was people that we live with. And it's not a slogan, coexist with and live together. And that's true. Usually not some of the Arabs go to Jewish schools, but let's say overall the Arab residents in Israel, they have the citizens have their own school system and all the rights they can be, that they have, they're equal citizens in everything, and it was complex, and it's a situation that would take the Israeli society some time to rebuild the trust and the coexistence. I completely agree. It hurts, and it would take us a while to take care of it, and take care of it, I mean, in society and in a good way, and heal it, and to rebuild the relationships. So, yeah.
So there's a question in the chat from Allison. If Israeli Jewish children and Arab children go to school together, do they have a choice? And she prays with you and stands with you. Thank you, Allison, for that. Can somebody answer that question?
By mistake, I answered privately, so I'm going to answer everyone. I
Okay.
had children, I had Arab children at my school when I was a kid. I also have still friends from my college who are Israeli Arabs. Really great people. I also worked with them. And, you know, it's a school for design and art. So they get to express themselves in ways that maybe they don't have an opportunity to where they're from, because they don't have these kind of institutes. So they come and they express themselves, and it's fun and it's nice.
I should say that overall, there is they can't, in most places, depends on the municipality, but as far as I know, they can choose, like the Jewish kids can choose.
Yeah.
But they do have an Arabic education system within the Israeli Ministry of Education. So they do have their own system, but it's not because it's segregation or something like that. It's because they're studying in Arabic, which is their mother tongue, and so on and so forth. So they're studying, but everything is through the state. It's not a separate system. It's inside the regular Israeli system.
Like we have religious schools for like
Right,
more
exactly.
religious for kids.
Yeah,
It
exactly.
varies from
Just want to
however you want to
clarify
study.
what Einat said. Did you say they can choose or they cannot choose?
As
They
far as I know,
can.
they can.
They
Because I
can
had
choose.
an Arab student in my grade. They can. They usually don't because the curriculum is different.
Yeah, exactly. But definitely in mixed cities like Lod and Haifa and so on, they definitely are mixed, and they can
Right.
choose. Just like a Jewish, like Adar said, if a Jewish kid wants to learn in an art school, so they can choose to go there. The same, the Arabic students. I mean, the Arabic kids.
Got it. Thank you for the clarification. Karen Blaustein, you said you had a question and a comment.
My comment is that I'm so proud to hear you all. And there's such an important message in what Roy said, and I wrote it down because I want to remember. The reason there are not so many Israeli casualties and is because Israelis care more about their citizens in a way that they commit themselves to protect each and every one of you all, no matter whether you're religious or not religious or Arab or what, Christian or whatever. The system is there to protect you all. And Roe said it so well. And my question is, how do you feel about that kind of a thing when you know the world sort of seems against you in what you
So
see?
I can tell you I'm here at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and I'm like, oh my God, how can you be so blind? How can you not see the truth? That's my first reaction. Like, how can you see what we're doing and what they're doing and be so blind? But from the other side, I'm saying, well, if I was in their side, I would say the same. I see a country that had an amazing army, and I see a small country without an army. So of
It's
course
not a country even. It's they,
yeah, so it's easier to say, it's easier to blame the strong side. But we're the strong side because we chose it. We chose to build our country. They had the opportunity to build their own country. They didn't want it. All they want is
Right.
that we will not be here.
right.
So they had their opportunity to build their own country, and they chose not to. That's
New
not our
time.
fault. That's not our fault to choose for building our country. So it's hard for me. And what I did about it is taking all the volunteers in my age here and taking someone from the it's called DPATS. It's a public diplomacy, which is it's a unit here in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs that dealing with the with how to explain the rest of the world what Israel doing, what is it. And I took all the volunteers here, and we had an elections about it. And but yes, it's really difficult for me to see how the world is against us. And you know, someone from India sent me a message of videos that are sorry, but BS. Like, oh my God, I don't know where those video came from. She sent me something that it's obviously the people in the video that are not speaking Hebrew or Arabic or any language that someone speaks here. And I was like, you're judging Israel and you don't know what you're sending me. And she was from India. And by that time that she was sending me, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs sent an enormous aid pack to India to deal with the COVID-19. So it was like, we're helping the rest of the world. And when you are helping Hamas, they're using their own money instead of building, instead of helping their own people, they're using it to murder us. It was like, something is wrong with you, man. Really, like you cannot know the truth and still stand with the terror organization. It's a fact. You cannot do it. And that was my reaction for people who act like that. And I saw that it comes from her pure hate for Israel or for, you know, because it's not, they have no state, no establishing for their own opinion. Sorry about my English. It's
I would also like to comment about your question, Karen. It's a very good question. It is also why it's a big part of the reason why I chose to be an emissary. The feeling that we're sort of like alone in the world and no one really knows the truth and believes us. And I couldn't understand, how is that even possible? That also Israel, such a small country, who cares about it? All over the world, people hear about it. And every place in Europe, there are protests against it. We're so small. Like, why does everyone care? So that was also one of the big reasons why I chose to go to be an emissary, because I wanted to share the truth, because I thought that people deserve to know the truth. I think most of the reason why it's like this is because people just don't read and they're ignorant and they don't know the facts. Because today on social media became like a thing to go free Palestine and like your human rights thing. And most of the times it's just like teenagers who don't really know the facts behind the things and the history. And I'm pretty sure they don't even know where Israel is on the map. So I'm not too excited about those things. But also every day that I'm in the Navy and I'm in the IDF, it really strained my knowledge that we're doing the right thing. Because I can tell you that in the recent conflict, I'm in the Navy and I also have a lot of friends in the intelligence forces and other branches of the military. We're the only military who does active things to protect the other side citizens. And it's not just something that you hear on the media and YouTube videos. It's actually the truth because I heard it from my friends who serve in the intelligence units. So we're pretty much the only military in the world who does this because we care. These things just don't go out to the media because it's not interesting and it's not, people don't care about that. And they always want to show the underdog side. And it's a very good question, and thank you for asking that.
Thank you for your answers, both of you, and all of you.
I have to say that it's a crazy world where we have to justify ourselves for not being dead and for protecting our citizen. In what other world or what other country would apologize for not having as much death as the other side? I mean, it's insane. It's almost insane. And regardless of the fact that we're hurting for every pain and every death on either side of innocent people, of course. I won't say I'm too sorry for terrorists. I'm talking about innocent people. But it's insane. I mean, and I heard there was on Israeli television, they made a story about foreign reporters and foreign media and asked them what they think and how they cover it and so on. And one actually, I think it was from Germany, by the way, but just for the happen, she says, I'm sorry to say, it's weird to say it, but it's because Israel, some of it is because Israel doesn't have as many deaths. And I said, I felt in my heart, I felt pain. I mean, that is what the whole world, not necessarily this situation, but this is what our world came to. Being sorry for not having as much death. I'm very happy for every life saved. And it's just crazy to me that we have to even explain or apologize or think about apologizing for that.
But justify.
Or justify why we're not dead.
Yeah.
I mean, that's insane.
I'm sure many of you, especially in Israel, and maybe a lot of people on the call know of Noah Tishby, and she's being very outspoken. She's really been wonderful. And I think it was the talk that she came back to with John Oliver. I think that was the one. But in one of her talks, she said, you know, what you're telling me is you would feel better about this if there were more Jews dead. I'm sorry that we can't accommodate you. Thankfully, we don't have that. We have the Iron Dome. So it was that was a very powerful thing for her to have to say. And it's unfortunate because, if you think about World War II, if you measure, by how many deaths, Germany would have been the good guy and England would have been the bad guy. There were more deaths in Germany than there were in England. So it's just a crazy measure. It's a ridiculous yardstick. It's sad that that's the yardstick, but that's what people are basing it on.
I gotta say something else. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes, go ahead, Rui.
I gotta say something else, that here at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we saw a lot of supporting in Israel too. So there was a little bit of bright side. We saw a lot of embassies, and not our embassies, but their like embassy of France or something like that, that they were hanging on their own embassy an Israeli flag to support Israel and to show the right to defend itself. And also, I want to read you something that I saw on Instagram that Golda Meir said. She was one of our prime ministers, and it's connected to what we're talking about. She said, if we have to have a choice between being dead and pitied and being alive with a bad image, we'd rather be alive and have the bad image. So that's the whole point. We want to protect ourselves, and yes, we have a bad image and we will fight it, and we will do a lot of things that we can do to educate others for what Israel is. And I think that this operation was an enormous lesson for Israel for get up and start doing a better הסברה. מישהו יכול לעזור לי?
Advocacy.
Yeah,
an
that.
advocacy.
Yeah,
And
You know,
advocate.
when
Yeah.
somebody when people mention to me the imbalance in the lives, how many people were dead, I said to them, yes, Israel should be really proud of that, because Israel spends its money to make sure its people don't die, and Hamas doesn't care.
Exactly.
God
The Iron Dome
said things like
performances
that.
were
I'm sorry.
extraordinary this time. No, I'm just saying the Iron Dome performances were
Amazing.
amazing.
So I just
90-something%.
I wanted to continue what Rory said, because it reminded me of, actually Golda said many very smart things. She was a very smart woman. So the first thing that Romana, you just reminded me is that Golda said that we will have peace. You probably know, you know that probably, in the Middle East. We'll have peace in the Middle East once our enemies will love their children more than they hate us. And another thing that she said to Biden, actually, when Biden met her for the first time, the president, she told him, you know what, Israel's secret for staying, you know, for existing, our biggest secret. Do you want to know it? And he was imagining things like the weapons and the things. And she said, well, the secret is that we have nowhere else to go. And that's the truth. We have nowhere else to go. So we need to protect ourselves, and we do it with our Jewish morals, and we care about each casualty. Our papers show in the news the dead on the other side and their stories and everything. I don't know if it happens anywhere in the world. I don't know. I mean, I know that it happens here. We care so much about everything that happens. You probably know the knock on the roof procedure that we do before anybody gets hurt there. We tell them beforehand, so they'll know not to get hurt.
Don't shoot if there's children around.
Yeah. Also from personal experience, when I was in the Navy, and of course the Navy is also a part of an operation where there is an operation where children are there and terrorists are there. They're not shooting. We're not shooting. I mean, our forces are not shooting because we care, because it's important to us. On the other side, they're shooting, and it was in the beginning of the conversation, so I'm not going to repeat it. But our side is, I think it's the Jewish morals that we all know. Abroad, we know it. Here, we know it. It's our roots. It's where we come from and what we care about. So, and you can relate to it because we're all Jews. So
Right.
you can really feel it there too, probably, because you know it. So that's what I wanted to say about that.
Thank you, Hadar. There is a question in the chat I want to put out to everybody. What are your thoughts on the new government? Because that just happened this morning, if I understand correctly.
It's still happening.
Well, it's
Still
totally
hap-
going
still
on right
happening.
now.
Okay.
While we're talking.
Your hopes, your fears, promise/problems of Ram's inclusion in new coalition, chances for new initiatives, etc. So if you need to answer the question, it is in the chat if you need to look at it to be able to answer.
I'd love to answer it.
Go ahead, Guy.
So my thoughts, I think, I'm optimistic. It isn't an ideal government for nobody, because it's built out of many parties that gave up on many of their biggest and wildest dreams because they saw that there's a bigger picture here. When we show now the world that we can work together, left, right, Arabs, it shows that we care about the people of Israel and we want to achieve peace, first of all, among ourselves, and hopefully later on with the Palestinians. And I think that Ram being in this government could be a good thing, because first of all, we don't know what's going to happen. But I do think that it could be a good thing, because it shows that for the first time ever, you have a Muslim party, a non-Zionist party in the government that stated, they just said in the recent weeks, that they are trying to work for the Arabs that live in Israel. And that's something that the Arab parties that were not in the government, but were in the Knesset in the past few decades, obviously, didn't do. Many people voted for them, but they didn't necessarily work for those people. And now they stated that they want to work for the Arabs that live in Israel. And now that everyone is going to work together, I think that we could achieve great things. We don't know that because this government is 0 days old. And also negative because there's only hours left until it's finally, but we'll wait and see. But their motto, the entire government is, not speaking just about the Arabs, but the government in general, is that because we have so many people here, and because there is a lot that separates us, but a lot that brings us together, and 80% of the people can agree on 80% of the things in Israel, we can achieve great things. Like I said earlier, not everybody will achieve everything that their party stands for and everything that their party wants, but we still can make a lot of progress that will make us, hopefully, I really, really hope so, a less divided country, because everybody is tired of the fighting and the yelling. I mean, we can have something peaceful here. A week ago, there was 2 weeks ago, I can't remember, there was an election for who's going to be the president of Israel. A role that we can say is not political. It's very different than being the prime minister or something like that. But the thing that was special about that, the two candidates, who one of them is considered left, one of them is considered right, were both opposing against each other, but running for the president, they did it peacefully. They hugged each other. They congratulated the other one. They said nice things. And it reminded everybody that we can be civil here. We can have a great country because we are a great country. So let's just forget about all the bad stuff. It's not that easy, but I mean, it could happen. So it is very hard to say, but I want to say that I'm hopeful for what's about to happen.
I think that's a wonderful place to sort of leave it. I mean, I'd hate to leave it, but we've been on over an hour, and I did say it would probably be about an hour. We can do this again. We can have future conversations like this. I know the emissaries, many of them, not just those that are here now, but others who would have liked to be that were not able to, would love to join in a conversation like this. So I'm happy to, on the road, have more of this. My apologies. So we can have these conversations again. For now, I think we need to kind of leave it there. It was a great place to leave it. It was a very positive note. And for that, I thank you, Guy, and I thank Gabe for the question. And let's hope things do start to get better and things look up. Is in terms of, public opinion of Israel, there's not a whole lot we can do about that. I think Israel is trying. And those of us who know the facts and know the history can do what we can do and send the message and explain things as we can and hope for the best. And I think that we do have to be hopeful. And that's where I think we should leave it. I want to thank all of our emissaries, Guy and Roe and Bar and Einat and Hadar, for a wonderful, wonderful conversation and for sharing their experiences, whether they were direct or through their families. We needed to hear that, and we really appreciate all you did. And I think at that point, I just have to say thank you to everyone and see you next time.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you everyone for coming.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Marcia. Thank you, emissaries. This was great.
Thank you, Ramona. Thank you all for being here.
Goodbye.
Shalom.